It breaks my heart to say this, guys. Like, I'm so bummed. She only mentioned his height like twice. These were all books that I was highly anticipating, and they were all kind of letdowns. Ooh hoo hoo. Hello everyone, how are you doing? My name is Carrie. Thank you for being here. Welcome to my channel. We are doing a monthly reading wrap up, and I was really scared in the beginning of this month, honestly in the middle of this month, up until like a couple days ago. I was really worried that I was going to, first of all, I didn't read as much, and second of all, I was only going to have books to complain about. I will put in the description box like an emoji in terms of if I even liked the book at all, so if you want to hear rants, you can listen, and if you don't, you can just skip to the good books. But this was a rough month, so I'm going to dive into it. But someone who turned this month around for me the last minute happens to be the sponsor of this video as well, so thank you as always to the absolutely wonderful Book of the Month. Yes, you know them well. Book of the Month is a subscription service that you can pause anytime and start again, by the way, which is lovely. They have a team of readers who read all of the new releases, pick their favorites across all genres. They can be from brand new authors, or they can be from some of your absolute favorites. October last month had the new Adrian Young book. I mean, they've got they're all going to be hardcover. They're really wonderful. Great picks. I've had some of my favorite books come from Book of the Month, and you will get your books for one controlled price. You can pick one or more every month, and if you use the code GOBBLE, you will get your first book for $9.99. That is a hardcover, newly released, wonderful book. The first one I got is Let Us Descend. This is a historical fiction about slavery in the United States, and I literally just read the first page and I was like, I made an excellent choice. I'm very excited to start this actually this month. And then the book that I read last night, we're gonna go into it at the end of this video because it was the last book of the month that I read. I got Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is her first young adult novel. I'm gonna talk about it, but saved my month. Absolutely wonderful. So you can also check this out for November. $9.99. Beautiful hardcover book. So once again, you can use my code GOBBLE. It will all be in the description box. But yeah, absolutely always love Book of the Month. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Thank you for giving me a book that truly salvaged this reading month. Shall we dive into the books that I read? Here we go. So I spent the first week and a half of October in the United States visiting my family. You can watch the vlog somewhere. I'll link it somewhere. Because of that, I just wasn't reading a whole lot because I was hanging out with my family and lounging around the house and stuff. And I was just feeling really stubborn. I think because I knew that I wasn't reading the normal amount that I do. I, for some reason, didn't want to DNF books. I had been, like the end of last month as well, I was DNFing a ton of books. Like I would read up to 40% and then I would drop it. And I hate that feeling. So I really pushed myself through the first 3 books that I'm going to be talking about, and I shouldn't have, but here we go. The first one I read is The Devil's Flute Murders. I totally picked this up because when I was in Hay on Wye over summer, I saw this cover in the new book section and I was just like, love. And I typically love Japanese thrillers. So what's interesting about this book is that it was actually written in the 50s, 60s, I believe, but it was just kind of recently, I don't know if it was retranslated, but it was definitely republished with new covers and everything. So I had no idea. I thought this was like a newly released book, and that's what's quite interesting about it, is it does read like a pretty modern story. It feels like a modern day author is writing about something that took place in the 50s, you know, instead of it being an author from the 50s. So that was quite cool. This is also a series similar to like a Sherlock Holmes, where one detective is the detective throughout all of these mystery books. This particular one was not the first book, so I think a little bit of my issue with the book was that there were clearly like a lot of these tendencies, like little quirks that our detective had that were probably explained in the first books, but I just didn't get them. So he seemed like a very strange character. And overall, I did find it interesting. This is a mystery about a kind of noble family in Japan. Kind of the head of the family killed himself, but did he? We saw the body, but now things are happening in the family that they're thinking maybe he's still alive and maybe he wants some kind of revenge. So our detective is roped into figuring out what is going on with this family. Everything's really bizarre. I really enjoyed it until I started to figure out where this mystery was heading, and it delves into a topic I really don't like reading about, and so that's what kind of ruined it for me. Writing style wise, really cool, really interesting. It was very like there's a killer in the house, and I don't know, I liked it, but it was just kind of more the subject matter once it got into that I was like, ooh, count me out, you know? So I will definitely give books by this author a try, but just for the Devil's Flute murders, After that, I read Sucker. I think I got this off of some book recommendation list from like, it was either in a magazine or something like that. It wasn't from a trusted friend, and it was described as a mixture of Bad Blood, which is the book about Elizabeth Holmes and her startup that claimed it could solve all of these health problems, you know, crazy Silicon Valley weird stuff going down. It was a mixture of that plus Succession, which I have never seen, but I know that people love. So I was like, oh, okay, like this weird thriller, but maybe sci-fi, but also about like Silicon Valley and tech. I was into it. And so I tried my very best to read it, waiting for a twist, and it just ended up being really dumb. The main character is a like piece of crap trust fund anti-tech bro, but he's totally just a tech bro. He's trying to break away from his rich family and strike out on his own by having like a punk rock label, but then he gets roped into his friend's tech company that is like very similar to Elizabeth Holmes's dream company. It was very realistic of like a gross tech bro. Like he was very misogynistic. He was just like, he just saw it was just hard to read, but I pushed through because I was like, you know, I'm sure that there's gonna be this twist and it's gonna be great. They hinted so much at like vampire stuff, and they could have gone for it and they didn't, and it ended up being just more like Illuminati nonsense. It was just really a letdown. It was not worth reading from the eyes of that character for so long to get like no payoff. Like I just felt So that was another one that I should have DNF'd, but I didn't, and I regret it. So those were the two, and that also kind of like stopped me from reading more when I was at home, because I definitely had time. Like we were just laying around in the house, but it was taking me ages to get through these two relatively short books because they were just bad and I couldn't let them go. So let that be a lesson for ye. Gotta get better at DNFing. So that was Sucker. After that, I have no idea where I found this. Once again, I think I was looking up like dark academia things, and this came up, and I thought the cover was so interesting, the synopsis was so interesting, and this book was so, I can't even describe it. So it's a book in two parts. It's called The Resurrectionist. Once again, it was something that I could not find at my library, so I purchased it. This was truly bizarre. Part one was a fictional biography, essentially a Wikipedia entry, of this one scientist who went into medicine in like the 1800s, and he got really interested in trying to figure out what is the perfect human, if I'm remembering correctly. He just got like really obsessed with kind of genetics and diseases. I was waiting for them to come out and be like, he's a eugenicist, but it seemed like they were trying to make it seem like he wasn't. He thought that any disability was actually perhaps us. I don't know. It was bizarre, and I don't recommend this book. But it was, so the first part was like a Wikipedia entry of this fake man, and then the second half was just his journals, his drawings, and he went crazy. And so his drawings are just like, look at this horse fish. Like he would make all of these. He was trying to figure out like what did things look like back in the day. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it too much because it was just a waste of time, and I was trying to be like, there must be a point, there must be a reason. This book was on a list. There must be something, and it was just really, really, really a waste of my time and truly bizarre. Like there wasn't even any like aha moment or discussions about his thoughts. It was just a dry Wikipedia entry, and I would not recommend, but it was a really cool cover. The Resurrectionist. After that, T. Kingfisher came in to save the day. So this was recommended to me by some of you guys, and the one time I go in prepared for a series, I have all of the books ready for me, downloaded, ready for the airplane, because I was getting on a 16-hour flight that lasted forever, like the longest 16 hours of my life. Tell me why. These were 3 standalones in the same world. So I didn't need to be as prepared as I was the one time. But anyway, I read Paladins Grace. Within this world there are 3 books, and I have not read them yet, but everyone says the second one is actually the best, and I really enjoyed the first one, so I'm so excited to like have that book for a rainy day, you know? Paladins Grace. What did I write? These are my notes. Are you prepared? 2 adults being awkward while there is a murderer beheading people on the loose. She loses points for saying ample breasts, but overall the banter was funny. So yes, this is about a world in which there are gods, and I actually talk about it in my book haul if you want to go back to that, but it's about a world in which there are gods, and our main character has sworn his fealty to this one god. He becomes kind of a soldier, a warrior, and that god can call on him at any time to like fight, and he's, you know, him and his brothers and sisters are like these unbeatable death machines, right? And then his god dies. And we didn't know that that was possible, but his god dies and he loses his mind, and all of those like soldier powers and stuff, he's unable to control them. So sometimes like the day that the god died, a lot of his fellow soldiers like went out and killed people or killed themselves, just went mad. And so now there's only 7 of them left, and another god has kind of adopted them and lets them live in their kind of temple, as long as they act like bodyguards. Like they can live there freely, eat, whatever, just be around when we need you, you know? And so one day, as he's doing some bodyguard work, he ends up stumbling across a woman in distress, and thus starts a very awkward romance that is just so cute and funny. And there's this backdrop of, like I mentioned, a murderer on the loose, and so there's like they're trying to solve a murder, but then there's also a poisoning and there's political intrigue, and that doesn't matter at all, because what matters is that this relationship is so stupid cute. These are like late 30s adults who just haven't flirted in decades, and they are awkward, and they like each other, but they just are so, it was really cute, and the banter was so good, and I highly recommend it. It was just lovely. That's Paladins Grace, and like I said, everyone says that Paladins Strength, which is the second one, is the best. So if it's better than Paladins Grace, I'm so excited. But that's by T. Kingfisher. Short, standalone, fantasy, adorable, saved the day. That was Paladins Grace. Next up, really quickly, another DNF. This one I actually DNF'd because there was no way that I was going to read 550 pages of this book. I picked up Duet with the Siren Duke. This is one of what I thought was the last book in the series Married to Magic, and it's not. She just announced another one, so will this ever end? This series specifically is written for the trope of a forced marriage, usually enemies to lovers, which forced marriages are never my thing, but I started a series and I was like, you know, let me finish it. Hands down, this was the worst book in the series, and I really didn't like the last book that I read of it, and this is even worse. They keep getting longer. We follow a girl who is in a really emotionally abusive relationship. She gets married to a man and gets taken away to this tiny island where he's the lighthouse keeper, and she's like never allowed to leave, so she's incredibly isolated. He's able to come and go freely, but of course not her. And when she finally decides, she realizes that her husband has been lying to her about some things, she decides to leave. And as she's leaving, she gets in kind of a shipwreck, which is bad in and of itself, but also the waters around her island are filled with sea monsters and sirens. So a siren ends up saving her, but says that he will need to come and collect her soul in 5 years. So she's got 5 years to go live her life, and then he's gonna come a-calling. And the book continues from there. It just really, really, really wasn't good. It made no sense. There was no chemistry, and I read until 40%. It just really had nothing. It was giving absolutely nothing. And so when I posted about it on Instagram, pretty much everybody agreed as well. So it's such a bummer because I really liked the first 3 books of her Air Awaken series. I will always recommend those. I think that those were really good, but I think she's just like, these Married to Magic books, I don't know what she's doing. Like she even wrote an author's note in the beginning saying like what she's trying to do with this book is talk about reclaiming your life after an emotionally abusive relationship, but to take her out of one that she escapes and then just put her in another one, another like forced marriage situation, like why? No, like just no. So I don't know, it was also way too long. It should not have been over 500 pages. I think that is really what made the flight I was on feel so long, is I was so excited to power through a fantasy romance, and it was so bone dry. Like it was truly so. That was the Duet with the Siren Duke. I will not be reading as much as the the duel with a wolf king or something, as much as I'm intrigued by the title. No. I feel like such a complainer. I'm so sorry. But next up, I feel like this is a unpopular opinion. So I'm not nervous to talk about it, but like, I feel like I missed something. I read Curious Tides. I was waiting for this at the library for so long. It recently came out, but I had put it on hold like before the book was even released, so I feel like I've been waiting for ever. Everyone I know, who I trust, who has read this book, loved it. And I kind of get it, but mostly I don't. So Curious Tides takes place in a world where there is magic, and it is all tied to the moon. We follow a girl, I'll get to that in a second. Put that on the side. We follow a girl who is returning to her magical academy after her friend has, is that a spoiler? No. Her friend died. There is a big mystery around this. Something just doesn't feel right, and so we follow this girl as she tries to unravel the mystery of her friend's death. The thing I loved about it is also the thing that I hated about it. I loved the magic system. It was so interesting. It was kind of like astrology, where your magic depends on the time of your birth, but it depends on the phase of the moon you were born under, which I totally looked myself up, and I was born under a waning moon, which is of course the like creepy magic. Go figure. Yeah, I just thought that the magic system was really cool. The way that the academy is laid out, the powers that each kind of person, like under each moon phase, has. I thought it was so well thought out and so fun, and I love learning about a new magic system, but it also felt a little info dumpy and a little too much. Like, she just went a little bit overboard with telling us about it and reminding us what people are. So it just kind of got like, I was like, okay, let's get to the plot, right? And my second issue is that I did not love our main character at all. It wasn't that she was like annoying or anything like that. She just was, she would make these decisions and she acted in such a way that I had no respect for her. What did I write actually? My quote, I said, the characters felt pretty weak and the world building was heavy, but I liked the magic system. Literally just reading it for that, LOL. You can have a main character I don't like, but not a main character I don't respect, and I don't respect Emery. So yeah, I think that was really it, is that you can have a kind of unlikable character, but I just couldn't get behind anything that she was doing, and I felt like she was very naive and very selfish, and like we kind of knew immediately who the evil person was, like page 1 we were like, oh, but she couldn't see it, and that made me feel like she was really dumb. So I will continue it because I have a feeling that the second book, the way that it's going, will change a lot of the things I didn't like. But just for a first book in a series, it was, world building was heavy and the main character was kind of insufferable. So let me know your thoughts, because I really want to like it, because again, that magic system was really cool, but it just did not hit for me. I did like I did like one character. I liked the brother, but other than that, it was kind of So let me know your thoughts. That was Curious Tides. That was one of my most anticipated reads for the month, and I was a little bit let down. So next up is another highly anticipated read. I read Swordcatcher. This is Cassandra Clare's first non-Shadowhunter book, I think, which it showed, and it's also her first adult fantasy. So Swordcatcher, the first thing I heard about it was a lot of shit about how it is a ripoff, it is plagiarism of V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic, which I loved that series. I read that way before I did BookTube, so I don't know if I've actually talked about it on this channel, but I really love that series because the main character shares a name, spelled differently, but shares the same name with the main character in A Darker Shade of Magic. And there's this whole concept of like a prince's bodyguard, which is what Kel is in both books. Having read it now, no similarities. I will say that right now. People who, if you've actually read it and you say that it's plagiarism of A Darker Shade of Magic, you are out of your mind. It is not similar in any way, shape, or form. If you want to talk about plagiarism of A Darker Shade of Magic, you can talk about Nocturna, but I'm not going to. This was nothing. It doesn't take place in London. It's in a totally different world. The magic system's totally different. The princes, like the characters, are totally different. So let's just get that out of the way. That being said, though, this was not a great book. So we follow our main character. We have a couple main characters, but we have Kel, who was an orphan that happens to look quite a bit like the current prince of his country, of his kingdom. And so they take him and, using a little bit of magic, make him look identical so that if there's ever like a security, he's a body double is what he is. You know, like if the prince has to give a speech and it doesn't seem safe, they send him up there, because if he gets shot, who cares? You know? And that's kind of his life. He, ever since he was like 10 maybe, he has lived in the palace and is just the body double, and when he's off duty, he is like the head of the guards or something like that, right? So we follow them, but we also follow our main girl, who is part of a, I guess, ethnic group. They're the only people who still have this certain kind of magic, because magic has been completely eradicated from the world. There's a whole mythology to it, but they're the only people who contain any little sort of magic, and so they're really ostracized. She's a physician. She gets called in to help in a certain emergency, and so of course her and the royals, their storylines combine. The first book is very like political intrigue. There's a lot of kind of like mobster stuff going on, and part of me liked it, but another part of me was like, ooh, what is she trying to say? Especially reading this during, I was reading this in the middle of October, so with constantly talking about Israel and Palestine, noticing parallels of the way that she talked about certain things, I was just like, I guess I was like either reading too deeply into it, or I don't know, but I just like, I felt like she was trying to say something about, you know, displaced people and ethnic groups that are ostracized, and it just, something didn't sit with me, and I still, like, I need to go back and reread it and kind of analyze, but it was a weird time to be reading a fantasy book that there was a lot of stuff going on in real life that I just couldn't separate the two. My notes, this is directly after reading the book, I wrote, I don't like the romance, but I liked the world. But at the same time, it felt like she was alluding to real world issues and I wasn't sure what she was saying. Oh God, Kim Jo-sung, that's right. I'll go back to that. And then I put, she hasn't had to build a world in a while. And so we saw this in the Mortal Instruments, her first series within the Shadowhunter world. She loves building worlds. She loves lore. She loves mythology. She wanted to create another rich world and she just kind of went overboard. The mythology of it, like there are gods and goddesses, there's a magic system, there's many, many, many different countries talked about. She just went too hard. And what's weird is that for some, like the countries were the kingdoms were very clearly supposed to be like real life kingdoms. So there's a kingdom that is absolutely supposed to be China. There's a kingdom that is absolutely supposed to be India. There is one called Gum-joseon, which is clearly supposed to be Korea because Gum means gold and Joseon is like the old dynasty of Korea. It's a fantasy world, right? Korea doesn't exist in this world, right? But the one character randomly says like Korean swear words. She literally, instead of saying like fuck or damn it, she literally goes shiba. And it's like, is she, just say she's Korean, just say she's from Korea, like just say it, you know? Bizarre that she would put so much work into creating a completely new world, but then just literally just change Korea's name. It was really weird. I couldn't get over it. And like everybody's last name was Korean if they were from Kim Jo-sung. Like, Cassie, make up a new country, you know? And yeah, I didn't really get I was excited because Cassandra Clare knows how to make a romance. I love yearning. I love how Cassandra Clare writes yearning. The romance in this book makes no sense. I understand like why in the partnership, I understand why partner A likes partner B, but I do not understand why partner B likes partner A. There's nothing. So I will continue it because I just am so curious about what she's doing. I think there were a lot of elements that people would like. Like I said, there was kind of this mobster element that felt like it could have been an adult Six of Crows attempt, but overall it was just weird and I felt like she really wanted us to understand that it was an adult novel, so she put a ton of brothel scenes, like a ton of brothel scenes. Most of the book takes place in a brothel. And it was kind of like, Cassie, what? It was like 600 something pages. It should not have been 600 pages, but I will continue it because I'm just confused and I want to know what she's doing, you know? Please let me know your thoughts. I'd really like to talk about it with someone because I haven't heard people really talking about it. And yeah, I want to know. Please chat. Thank you. After that, speaking of Israel and Palestine, I picked up Against the Loveless World by recommendations by a lot of really wonderful people doing really great work on Bookstagram. God, this book, I had to put it down so many times because it was just a rough read, but I think it's really important, especially for, I mean, worldwide, but specifically Americans who we do not learn this in school. We follow a woman who her parents are from Palestine, but they have to leave and they move to Kuwait where she is raised. And so learning a lot about that, of the complications of being Palestinian in another country, being ostracized there, the challenges that they face there, but still living in Kuwait. So she grows up there, she gets married, things just crumble from there. She turns to prostitution. Eventually Iraq comes in, invades. She finds herself in a refugee situation again, where now she's moving to Jordan. Eventually she makes her way back to Palestine. I just learned so much. It was so rough to read. And we know that there's not exactly a happy ending because she is recounting this tale from her prison cell. She is reflecting back. So every once in a while we flash to present day and she is rotting away in this really horrific prison. And so I think it was just so important to read because you saw how complex everything is, how many people fucked things up over there, and just really, again, like, we didn't learn any of this in school. Like, sometimes you can just understand things better when they're told in a fictionalized tale, and I think that this really helped me put things in a timeline and understand things, and it was great, but it was really, really rough. So I recommend, especially like whenever I closed the book and then I would open up social media, it was like I was surrounded by this story. And so I just really, really recommend it. It was written incredibly well against the Loveless world. A must read. Absolutely. After that, like I said, I kind of took a little bit of a break from reading, and then I realized that the sequel and finale to a duology I was really excited about was coming out. So I reread One Dark Window so that I could then read Two Twisted Crowns. This is a fantasy about a land where there used to be magic, but there's this whole backstory, this whole mythology to it, but magic was kind of banished from the land, and there's only these cards. I thought the magic system was so cool. There's only these cards that you can use to control magic, except for when children get an illness, they get this fever, and if the fever doesn't kill them, they typically get some kind of magical power, and thus they need to be killed, because there can't be any magic in this world other than the cards. However, our main girl got sick, survived, and has certain powers, but her family fought really hard to hide it, and so she is living in fear, trying to hide her powers. But of course she gets wrapped up in this whole scheme of trying to fix the curse that is on their land, in their kingdom. I'm not explaining this well at all, wow, but it was it was really good. I thought I really enjoyed it, and I liked it, but I liked it more upon the second read. I think it made a lot more sense. So I was really excited for Two Twisted Crowns, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, because the first one, we just follow our main girl, who I think was so interesting. No spoilers, but like her power / curse is really intriguing, and I thought it was written really interestingly. I was really drawn in by our main character, and just based on how the story goes, in the second one we see a lot less of her. We now have a multiple POV situation, and I thought that was a weird choice. We get a whole nother storyline in the second one. We get a side character from the first book gets more of a kind of main character treatment in the second book, and I really felt as I was reading it that was kind of written simply so that she had enough material to make a second book. I liked it, don't get me wrong, I actually really enjoyed that. No, I don't want to spoil it. A certain character's storyline, I ended up enjoying it, but it kind of felt like filler. And again, because we see less of our main character, it kind of took away what I liked about the book. There were also some things that, question for anybody, this isn't a spoiler, but in the first book, didn't they say that like you couldn't rip the cards? Like it was impossible to rip the cards? But then in the second book, people are just ripping cards left and right. So did I miss something? Overall, I thought like they tied it up. I get it. I think I like it more looking back on it, but as I was reading it, it just kind of lacked the things that I liked from the first book. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, because I think as a duology, I enjoyed it, but I was kind of expecting something different. So that was Two Twisted Crowns. I feel like such a complainer. Sorry. After that, I went into my most anticipated book of the year. I reread the whole series of Once Upon a Broken Heart so that I could read the finale, A Curse for True Love. I made a whole reading vlog about it. I love rereading. It reminded me very much of when I did a reread for Chain of Thorns. I so greatly enjoyed being in a world for that long. It took me about a week to be reading these books. I just felt so encompassed by a world that I love, and I had so much fun, and I was reacting to it live. And then after I finished the third book, and I thought like, wow, that was such a good time. After I finished reading it and I sat with it for a little bit, I realized I didn't like it. And that breaks my heart. It wasn't horrible, but it was not a finale of a trilogy. So Once Upon a Broken Heart, we follow a girl who has her heart broken, and she decides to go pray to an immortal, like the kind of god of heartbreak for lack of a better word. She gets roped into this crazy scheme that is truly, I can't even explain what goes on in this book. And the first book in the series was fine. The second book in the series, Ballad of Never After, was so good. I don't know what it was, but there was just something that I loved about this book. So we were expecting the third book to like wrap everything up, like give us what we wanted, and it didn't. And I think my hypothesis for this, without going too deeply into it, is Stephanie has already talked about how excited she is to be working on her next project, which is absolutely taking place in the same world, that I think her mind was already done with the Once Upon a Broken Heart story, because instead of this feeling like a finale, like you wrote book 1, 2, 3, whew, great, here's the package. It felt like book 1, 2, and then 3 was like this vague thing because it was alluding to the next series. I'm positive I already know who's going to be in the next series. So she like tied up a couple loose ends from the series, not well, tied them up, and then she mostly was setting groundwork for future books. And so there were so many plot holes, so many questions unanswered. Certain characters were just not even mentioned. Like characters that had a huge part in the first 2 books are just never mentioned. Someone actually commented something really interesting. In the beginning of the book, in the beginning of the last book, there's a character that gets mentioned, and I thought like, oh, okay, he's going to play a big role, and then he's never mentioned again. And one person said, oh, I think that our other main character was mind controlling him and was like secretly helping our other main character. And if that was actually explained and made clear to us, that would have been so good and so romantic and great, but it just was totally lost on me. And it wasn't even like, oh, you just need to read it again and it's an Easter egg. Like, it was just unclear, kind of sloppy plotting. Like, there was potential there, but I think she just kind of missed it. And I've heard people saying that she's been open about how she really likes one character who is kind of the villain. And so she actually gives a lot of time to a character that most of the readers hate. And we want to hear about another character, but didn't give him as much time. It was just really frustrating, and the more that I think about it, the sadder I get. I also had so much fun, like being in the world and reading it. It's one of those books that like I wish I could forget it faster, because I know that I loved it as I read it, and the second I put it down and reflected on it, I hated it. So I'm so conflicted by this. I still had a good time. There were still moments that I loved. I just know that it was a floppy finale because she's already got her head in the next book, and that's kind of a bummer for people who wanted like a conclusion. It breaks my heart to say this, guys. Like, I'm so bummed, but I still absolutely would read it, but it's a frustrating read. A Curse for True Love. Okay, my last couple books, I swear, and this is where fun things happen. So after that, I picked up, I actually read this in between while I was reading Once Upon a Broken Heart. I read a book, Thrown in the Dark. This was recommended to me by a few of you guys. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It is a villain love story, but like, how do I describe this? So full disclaimer, I read this book, I read the first chapter of this book and I put it down because it just wasn't the right time. So if you have read a bit of it before and been like, ugh, I feel you, I understand. But I was like, let me give this one another try. This book was a good time. It was just funny. It's very much like this boy is born, he's half demon, and he is born into like, he's a villain, right? Like, that's his identity. He's supposed to be the bad guy. And he's just kind of not. Like, he uses his powers for good. Like, he helps heal wounded kittens. And like, he just does stuff that's not villainous, but he's like so dead set on like, I am a villain. And it's like, it's comedic. It's very like, I think that you need to go into it knowing that this is a very silly, sarcastic book and just kind of have fun with it. The other main character is this kind of happy-go-lucky girl who for some reason needs to get this cursed scroll. So she sneaks into the villain's city and ends up accidentally getting wrapped up in our villain's story. It was really fun. I'm really excited to continue the series. Literally my notes, I wrote fun. It was very much like a kind of Despicable Me kind of thing. Like our villain is trying so hard to be a bad guy, but he's not. And it was just cute. It was a fun time. I'm excited to see how the rest of it goes, because now we're really getting into some action, and yeah, it was just like a goofy fun time. Like, it's not to be taken seriously. I had fun with it. I don't know what else to say. Like, it was just stupid. It was a stupid fun book. Like, stupid affectionately book. Thrown in the Dark. I had a really good time. So thanks. It's on Kindle Unlimited and helped me feel a little bit better about this book month. After that, I'm not going to go into it because I'm going to go into it next week, but I read the Hush Hush series. I'm halfway through it right now. I'm 3/4 the way through. This is a young adult fallen angels book written in the early 2010s. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. See you next week. And then finally, okay, this is my last book. Like I said, I got this from Book of the Month. Check and Mate. This is Ali Hazelwood's first young adult novel. This was so good, guys. We follow a girl who is living in New Jersey. She is supporting her family because her father passed away. Her mom has chronic, really severe rheumatoid arthritis, so she can barely get out of bed. So she's supporting her mom, her 2 sisters, and herself. Because of this, she has put off going to college, and she's just kind of staying home for the summer. Her best friend, who is like head of the chess club or something at their school, asks her for a favor. She needs one more player for this competition in the city to play chess. And this is when we learn that our main girl used to play chess and she was great at it, but for reasons we will uncover, somehow linked to her father, she stopped and she will not touch chess ever again. But because it's her friend's kind of last event before they move off to go to college, she agrees, bless you, goes to this competition and accidentally beats one of the top ranked players in the world. As one does. She gets wrapped up in the chess world. Again, she realizes that chess players can make a hell of a lot of money, which would help support her family, but she, for some reason, doesn't want to tell her family that she's playing chess, so she has to do this really secretly. It was really, really, really good. It's obviously a romance. This is Ali Hazelwood, but it was so different from her other romances. It was Guys, I really loved it. I posted about this on Instagram, but I cried after reading it, not because the ending was sad. The ending is actually incredibly wholesome, but I just cried because I loved reading it. It just made me feel so many things. Like, I was sweating, I was crying, I was laughing, and I love when a book can do that. So I literally just cried because it reminded me that I loved reading. Like, that's right. I will say that this book, it's young adult, so the romance, it's very fade to black, but it's also really good. And she does this weird thing where, I've noticed this in all of her books, but she picks a topic that she wants to kind of hit home for readers, and in her most recent adult book, I believe it was like consent and boundaries, and she just really hammered it home that, like, this book is about consent. And she kind of does it in this book in the beginning, where she talks about these kids are supposed to be 18 and 20. They do not feel 18 and 20. And you've got to really suspend some disbelief for this book. Like, what? This is fiction, okay? Please keep that in mind. She decides that in the beginning she wants to make sure that we know that this is a sex-positive book, and that, you know, you can have fun, no strings attached hookups, because sometimes sex is just a physical thing. And she just kind of hammers that home. Like, she could have just taken a couple scenes out. Like, she just really wanted us to know that it's okay to just, like, need a release. So that was the only kind of weird thing. Also, she has a 12 and a 14-year-old sister, and they talk like small adults, which, if you think about it, like, no 12-year-old speaks like this, but again, fictional, book. It made it so funny. It definitely wasn't a perfect book, but I really, really enjoyed it. She made chess so exciting. Yeah, I truly recommend, even if you don't like Ali Hazelwood. She only mentioned his height like twice. So, okay? I don't even think he picked her up once. So, Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. And that's it. That's my month. I have to wrap this up because I have a sick husband on the couch who I'm annoying with my book wrap up. But I hope that you had a much better reading month than I did. Like I said, the end of the month really saved me, but please let me know all of your thoughts down below, because especially with like Curious Tides and Swordcatcher and A Curse for True Love and Two Twisted Crowns, these were all books. I thought this was going to be my best book month of the year. These were all books that I was highly anticipating, and they were all kind of letdowns. So please, let's talk about it down below. Once again, book of the month, thank you so much for making my month. But also thank you for sponsoring this. You can check my description box, but if you use my code GOBBLE, you can get your first book for $9.99. Please check them out. They always pick really great books. Very excited for my next reads. Thank you as always. So I'm gonna leave you here, and I will catch you guys next week for Hush Hush. We've got some interesting vids coming up, but please let me know what you want me to talk about. Yeah, also there's like a much deeper discussion going on about A Curse for True Love on that video in the comment section. So if you want to see what people are already saying, go on over there. So, okay, I will see you guys later. Thank you always. Love you, and let me know what you're reading. Bye!